Welcome to Uplink, where we explore the world of digital infrastructure, uncovering the technology fueling AI and cloud innovation with the leaders making it happen. I'm your host, Michael Reid, and my guest today is the legendary serial entrepreneur, David Friend. David is the co-founder and CEO of Wasabi, pure play cloud storage company based on the principles affordability, predictable, simple and secure storage. It's no wonder that they're taking the world by storm. David joins me to discuss the birth and rise of Wasabi, how infrastructure has suddenly become cool, his background, and some of his interesting hobbies and side projects that have turned into philanthropy. Let's dive in. Well, it's a real pleasure today to have David Friend, who's the co-founder and CEO of Wasabi, join me today. It's an incredible cloud storage company that's disrupting the world. But David, and what we're so lucky to chat to him, he's one of these true serial entrepreneurs. It's actually the 7th company that he's founded over the time. And actually his first company, I think we might even get to talk about. And most recently, was a company called Carbonite, which was a storage company which he led to IPO, and then that was later acquired by OpenText for $1.4 billion. He's got some really interesting hobbies, which hopefully we'll get to see some of those things behind him. And those hobbies have also turned into some incredible philanthropy projects. So we might get to delve into a few of these different pieces and what is an incredible story. So today, let's start by asking you a little bit about Wasabi. And what is Wasabi? And how on earth did you come to found this incredible company? And we'll start there and see where the conversation leads.
Well, Wasabi is cloud storage. So whatever you need to store, whether it's video from a surveillance camera, genomics data from some hospital machine, medical imaging, computer backups, satellite imagery, we have every imaginable kind of data being stored in Wasabi, including data lakes for AI and things of that sort.
So we came across Wasabi, so we being Megaport, because we had some incredibly large customers that were trying to literally split the atom, is what we were seeing. They were moving a tremendous amount of data outside of some of the traditional cloud providers and storing it in this company called Wasabi, which I hadn't actually come across at the time. And I remember asking this particular customer, why on earth are you moving out of this huge hyperscaler, what was an incredibly large amount of data, probably one of the largest on the planet, I suspect. And they were moving this data out and they were putting it into this company called Wasabi. And I thought, why would you do that? And their answer was, it was something like a 90-something% reduction in cost. And at the time, I didn't think that was possible, because I think, storage is, I think all drives come out of a similar factory, and I think you can only compress it by so much. But you guys went and did something very different and really took on the hyperscalers in a space that probably didn't make much sense to be able to be successful. And yet here I was listening to a customer aggressively trying to migrate to you. So that's how I first came across you. How on earth did you build that? How's that possible?
When I was the CEO of Carbonite, we were, backing up literally millions of PCs every night. And so we got very good at storing data in the cloud. And this would have been about 2015. My genius technical partner, Jeff Flowers, came to me and he said, Amazon had introduced the S3 storage some years ago, and Microsoft was already there with Azure Blob Storage. And he said, I have an idea that I've been working on with our chief architect for a new storage architecture that would be faster and cheaper than what Amazon and Microsoft had designed. And partly this was just based on the evolution of both disk drives, which had been getting higher and higher capacity, and the dramatic reduction in compute costs that had gone on during the 10 years or so between the time we founded Wasabi and the time Amazon and Microsoft introduced their cloud storage. So I encouraged him to go off, and they went and rented a little house nearby where Jeff lives, and worked away on it for about a year, and they came back and said they had it working at a prototype level. And Jeff is a real big, he's a very practical engineer as well as being kind of the Mozart of software, in my view. I looked at the numbers and I said, holy cow, if this really is accurate, we could sell cloud storage that is equivalent or better than what Amazon's selling for $23 for $7 and
Oh my
still
God.
make very good profit margins. And I recruited a new CEO for Carbonite and left to found Wasabi because, in my view, storage is on almost an infinite market.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that is never turns around. It's always going up, and everybody stores more data each year than they did the year before. And so we launched the service, our first data center in Virginia in 2017, and it took us roughly 7 months to sell our first petabyte of storage. Today we sell a petabyte of storage every 8 or 10 hours. So,
Wow. That's
so
unbelievable.
it's been a real big ride. And one of the things you're in a relatively capital intensive business. So one of the things that is essential for success in any business like this is the ability to raise money. And because this is my sixth startup really, and I've made money for a lot of investors along the way in my prior companies, there were a lot of people standing there with their wallets open saying, I don't care what you're doing, whatever it
I'm
is, I
in.
want to invest.
Yeah.
And and so we said, look, this is something that a lot of startups can't do. And so we went for a get big quick strategy. We raised a lot of money, we expanded quickly, so now we have data centers all over the world, including in Australia, where you are, as you know. And we have about 17,000 channel partners. So these would be VARs, MSPs, and distributors because we're almost entirely a channel driven service.
Yeah.
And about, somewhere around 110,000, 120,000 customers.
That's unbelievable.
Ranging from
Yeah.
some of the largest companies in the world down to some of the smallest. People can just go to our website and put in their credit card and sign up and start storing data in the cloud. And I made it so that it followed Amazon because Amazon still to this day has the bulk of the cloud storage
Mm.
market. But you can unplug Amazon and plug in Wasabi without changing any of your code, and everything works exactly the same.
I
So we
see.
thought this would be, the example that you gave of this very large customer that's
Mm.
moved to Wasabi. It was obviously a very simple thing to do, but
Mm.
moving a lot of data can take a long time, even with
Yes.
the kind of speed that you guys offer on your networks. If you're moving 100 petabytes of data or 200 petabytes of data, that's a lot.
It sure is. Well, that was actually what this particular customer needed, and they were in multiple cloud zones and locations all around the world. They wanted more. I think 100 gig was what we could get them out, and then
hmm
connecting in. And so, yeah, quite astounding the amount of. And I suspect it was probably running for some period of time to get that much data out.
Probably was. I don't know, but it probably was months,
Yeah,
to
that's
move
right.
that much data.
That's
The
that statement you had. We sort of, data's like gravity. It's so hard to move around, and when you get it, as you just said before, it just grows it just continues to expand. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, it's such a great business model to build out.
yeah,
It's sort of a net retention machine almost.
yeah. We have very, very little churn. People hardly ever leave, and we have, a positive net recurring revenue, so that even if we didn't sell one new customer, we'd still
Keeps
see that
growing.
top line grow, just because on average people store more data each year than they did the prior year.
Mm. Yeah,
Going to the
absolutely.
channel was a really good decision, I think, on our part because it allowed us to uh, capitalize on the trusted relationships that the channel partners already have with their customers. And a lot of these are big multi-billion dollar resellers who formerly would have sold, a NetApp box
Hmm.
or a Dell
Pure or
EMC
whatever it is.
storage
Yeah, yeah,
box. And now we've kind of trained them that, no matter what it is that you're selling, whether it's a backup system or a surveillance camera or, anything else that generates data, just plug Wasabi in. It just kind of solves the storage problem, and it's simple. And the channel is, we have some people who really understand the channel, and one thing they taught me is the channel is going to sell what is easy, makes the
yeah.
most money for the least effort.
Yes.
And so, we have really focused on making things simple.
Hmm.
And one of the things that, you mentioned, how do you get from sort of 70 or 80% savings, which is what the list prices would indicate, to 90%, is egress. And if you get a bill for storage from Amazon for S3 storage, it's got line items and line items and line items. And every time you look at your data, every time you take your data out, every time you touch it to see if it's still there, you get charged. So all these little micro charges. And we did a research project a few months ago that showed on average the customers that we have who are also using S3, only half of their S3 bill is actually the storage. The other half is egress and API charges and things of that sort. So when you look at their storage cost of $23 a terabyte, on average, people are really paying something like $45 or $46 per terabyte when you include all the other little micro charges that come
Yeah,
along after the fact. But our bill only has one line item on it, which
yeah,
is how much storage should you use. And
yeah.
once in a while, we get somebody who abuses our free egress policy, but it doesn't happen very often. And it's worth it for the simplicity and for the customer's peace of mind to know before they start how much is this going to cost, because
Yeah.
everybody knows how much data they have. What they don't know is how often they actually touch it.
Yes.
And
It's that
so they
API call. Yeah.
That's right. So they can
Yeah.
their first bill from Amazon could be a nasty surprise.
Yes. We had this conversation with different customers that was, I can't believe our bill. Well, it turns out we have a chatty app. I was like, what does that even mean? It just means the app is just checking or communicating back and forward a lot. And so therefore the API calls would go up. And our world is, I mean, we're very strong in the egress space. I mean, one of our products allows you to connect directly with cloud providers and reduces egress. So egress is something like 9 cents per gig, I think it is. And then I think we bring it down, I think 70% reductions as well. So there's so many hidden charges that add up, and there's some great companies that add true value to actually solve for that. But the piece that you mentioned before, it's actually really hard. You said something just to be simple. It's incredibly difficult to make products simple. And it's really, really difficult to add the second piece, which is to make it really cost effective. And so making a simple product that's cost effective, and then the last piece is you're incredibly reliable. You sort of have those three pieces. But it's everyone would say, yes, I just want to build a simple product. Megaport's the same. We had to keep it super simple, super automated, and had to be lower cost than what our competitors provided. But that's easier said than done when you're automating infrastructure and infrastructure at scale. I assume, I don't know how much storage you have, or well, it'd be enormous, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, exabytes, many exabytes.
Which is what? What does that even mean?
Well, an
What's an
exabyte,
exabyte?
an exabyte. Well, you go gigabyte, terabyte, petabyte, exabyte. So 1,000 petabytes.
1,000 petabytes. There you
Yeah,
go.
I don't
And
even
you've
know how
got
many
exabytes,
gigabytes that is.
plural.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
zeros.
Yes, which, as you pointed out, is capital intensive, because to do that you have an incredible number of drives. Um, so how do you do that? How do you figure out what drives to buy? I mean, do you just simplify the drive right down and then use the software across the top, which is the magic? Is that sort of the play, or in
Well,
our
the
case, it's sort of like that? Mm.
The key is to get what's called 11 nines of durability, and that's the gold standard for data security across
11.
Amazon, Microsoft. 11
Okay.
nines of durability. And if you were to think about that, if you gave me a million files to store, statistically, I would lose one file every 650,000 years. So
11 nines. Yeah, I mean, we've all heard of 5 nines, 11
yeah,
nines. Yeah, of
no, and that's, it's because people don't want to lose their data.
course. It's
And
so
so it has
critical.
to be highly unlikely. Now, there's a lot of ways to achieve that level of, I mean, that requires a lot of redundancy because a disk drive itself is nowhere near that reliable. A disk drive is almost sure to fail within 7 years. And one way to do it is you just make multiple copies of your data. So you got all your data on one drive, you got all your data on another drive, you got all your data on a third drive, and then the chances of all three of those drives failing at the same time is very low. So
Mm.
that's kind of a brute force method of achieving 11 nines of durability, and that's in fact what people did in the early days of
That's the
cloud
RAID,
storage.
RAID sort of
No, it's not.
description, or is that different?
That's a little different. Now, RAID
Yeah.
actually by itself can do the same thing by using what's called striping, and you can take your data and chop it up and spread it across a large array of drives. So in our case, we use an array of 17 drives, and you can lose any four of those drives before you lose any data.
Hmm.
So I can have an array of 17 drives. Four of them can fail at the same time, and I still won't lose data.
And then you
And
would replace those drives, or it would come
that's
up and
right. If
say,
one
yeah.
fails, and they fail all the time, so
Hmm.
when one fails, you actually rebuild that drive from the data that's on the ones that haven't failed.
Got it.
And
So it would
one of the things that
automatically sort of pull another drive into it, or would you physically go and replace that?
we actually found at Carbonite that it's better to have spares, hot spares, sitting there.
Yes.
And so because we don't go out to our data centers, but once every 3 or 4 months. Um,
So you'd have it actually already plugged in, and this is available. If
yeah,
this one
it's
failed, it
already
would just pull
available,
that to the
and
pool. Yeah.
that's right. So we have a pool of
Yeah.
spare drives that can be automatically turned on and rebuild any array. And so it gets to be very complicated because you have to optimize for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But we found that one of the biggest costs in storage is the people that it takes to babysit all this
Yes.
gear.
Absolutely.
And there are kind of rules of thumb in the on-prem data storage industry about how many people it takes to babysit a terabyte of data. And we actually operate at about 10% of what that norm is
Yes.
by building redundancy into our equipment so
Yes.
that when things fail, which is inevitable, um, the software itself actually detects those failures and then brings up some redundant system to
Mm.
compensate.
It's basically built to fail because it is going to fail. So then you build it to expect the failure, and then you get it to self heal itself, so to speak.
That's
We
right.
we have a very similar scenario at Megaport. We're probably different in that we're in so many. We have to, by our very nature, we have to be in thousands. We're in 1,000 locations, and the only way we could do that is we can't have humans involved. If you think of a traditional telco for us, everything would result in a human with a screwdriver and a plug driving to the data center, finding the thing, connecting it in, putting it in the wrong spot, bringing the wrong line card, and so forth. So for us, the only way we could actually do it being a small company is by automating everything. And so there's no humans that touch our network. And a bit like you, we build it to fail. We build an expectation that someone's going to drill a hole in some fiber somewhere, and that's fine. It's totally fine because we've got another physical path in every instance. So you've done the same thing, but it sounds incredibly complicated across what is probably a pretty dense data center location, I would
Yeah,
assume. Is
that's
it?
right.
Are you having trouble getting access to the space? And is there? I don't think drives are a huge amount of power from memory, but is it? What is
Well,
your challenge on that side, or is there one for you?
no, I mean there is a premium for space in data centers.
Yeah.
We're by no means a big problem in terms of power
No.
because it takes 3 watts to spin a hard
Yeah, not
drive,
much.
which isn't a
Yeah,
lot. So, the one NVIDIA chip running at, 400 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, it's going to use a lot more power than an array of disk drives. But it still takes floor space and it still takes connectivity, and
yeah,
the competition for data center space is certainly worse than it was. Um, but we've created some more strategic relationships with people like IBM, who have
yeah.
large amounts of space committed around the world, in some cases which they're not using.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
we've found some creative ways to keep ourselves from running out of data center space.
And can I ask you, I'm just asking things that come to the top of my mind that I'm curious about. Discs. When you look at a disc, there's sort of the spinning disc drives that I think we're all used to. Then you've also got flash or flash drive. How does that, how do you look at that? Do you have both options, or is it easier to build with disk or, and
We just launched our first all SSD data center in San Jose, and it's many times faster than the HDD. The latency is, probably 1/5 or 1/7
yeah,
of what an HDD is, because if you've got an HDD, the disk is spinning. To get
yes,
data off of a disk, you have to physically wait until the data comes under the head.
yes,
So there's no way around that.
yeah, it's the actual
Um,
speed of the drive itself, or the how fast it can spin, I suppose. Yeah,
right. But our view is that, for 50 years, the cost of disk drives has been coming down, down, down. So when we started in 2017, we were installing state-of-the-art 4 terabyte disk drives. Today, we're installing 22 terabyte disk drives, and that'll go to 28 and 30 in probably the next year or so. So they still cost the same, $200 to $300 per drive,
yes,
but you're getting far more capacity. However, the hard drive manufacturers are starting to reach some physical limits
yeah,
that are slowing down that
speed,
traditional
yeah,
15-20% year over year cost reduction. Um, Solid state storage, SSDs, are coming down at a much more rapid level. They're still about 2x the cost of a hard drive on a bit for bit basis. But within the next 2 or 3 years, that line is going to cross. And yeah, in which case, I don't know what the hard drive manufacturers are going to do. I think some of them have their head in the sand, but you know that, semiconductor manufacturing processes just get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as the volumes go up. And so, the people who are making NVMe flash, are they project, continued rapid decline in price. And so we're getting ready for a world in which all these hard drives become obsolete, and that'll probably be sometime in the next 5 years. We'll probably stop
start
buying
replacing.
hard drives, and everything we do will be based on flash.
And Flash gives you a similar? I thought drives were a bit more reliable than Flash or something, or the Flash burned out a bit quicker, or they've
No,
solved for that
flash
probably too.
flash doesn't last forever. So I mean,
Yeah,
there's only so many times you can read and write data and erase data from a flash. But there again, it's all software.
yeah,
So if you have enough redundancy,
it
and
doesn't. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. So, things just kick in and things wear out. So, it's definitely the future. And AI workloads particularly need higher performance than HDDs. And our two biggest customers today are both AI companies. Um, they're always looking for better performance. And so as the world transitions from HDDs to flash drives, I think you're going to see, expectations of higher performance just normally. But we want to be in front of that curve.
yeah,
We
and you
want to be
can
the
be.
first. So we're introducing the first cloud storage, S3 compatible cloud storage in San Jose that's all SSD tier of storage.
So much
And
faster.
it'll be $20 a terabyte, and Amazon's comparable product is $140 a
Wow.
terabyte. So
Yeah.
we're maintaining a huge price gap
Yes.
between what we're doing and what they're doing.
It's such an obvious thing. It's almost surprising that you're not. I mean, you're big and you're growing so fast, but it's so obvious that it's. Surprised the world hasn't caught on. I mean, when I first came across you, I must admit I hadn't heard of Wasabi. So I'm assuming that one of the hardest things, and by the way, Megaport has this problem. It's like every time we tell someone about Megaport, they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you exist." Is that the same story that you have? Is it really just an education for folks out there?
It depends where you live, right? So if you live in Boston, there's Wasabi logos everywhere. If you go to the Red Sox baseball game, the Wasabi logo is plastered all over the baseball stadium. If you live in England, if you go to a Liverpool, well, you can see I got a Liverpool Football Club jersey on. If you go to a Liverpool football game, you're going to see the Wasabi logo all over the stadium. So as we move into new markets, we have the challenge of building a brand. And I think a lot of tech executives don't understand the power of brand. But if a customer has the choice between two companies and they've heard of one and they haven't heard of the other, they're going to be predisposed to buy the one that they've heard of. This is especially true in storage because people take storage very seriously. I mean, it's not like if I've got some kind of an analytics system for my accounting, if it breaks down for a day, the world doesn't end. But if you can't get to your data or if you lose your data, it's a real problem. So, that's why we spend money on brand because we want to be well-known company and it's why we spend money on channel marketing because the channel already has a trusted relationship with the customer. And if the channel partner says you should use Wasabi, we think Wasabi's a good company. We're piggybacking off that trusted relationship that the channel partner already has with the customer.
With your when you store data in Wasabi, are you and you get the 11.9 component? Do you also have multiple data center options? So I could make sure that I've got a backup in one of your data centers, and if that thing
You
went
can
on fire.
replicate. So if you've got your data stored in Paris and you want to replicate it to Frankfurt, that can be just done in the background automatically. And a lot of people have requirements like my data has to be stored in
Two
two
locations.
locations on two different tectonic plates.
Yes, so we've
Crazy
got
things like that. So okay, fine, no
whatever.
problem.
Yeah,
Put one here and put one over there, 1,000 miles away, and you're all set.
we're hearing a lot of sovereign requests as well now. So, if you think of the geopolitics that's going on, everyone's super concerned about having data in multiple locations in case there is some sort of issue with the world. That's playing out for us in a number of ways. I was going to ask you, you said before one of your largest customers is an AI provider. Can I ask what we're seeing with sort of these NVIDIA GPU sort of neo clouds? They're building out massive scale in huge locations and sort of they're usually servicing one or two customers in many cases. Are you also looking to sort of build out a giant, would you or do you build out like a giant storage that connects into that specifically for that customer? Or have you managed to keep everything purely a cloud option versus building bespoke sort of storage instance in their data center or whatever it may be?
We have done both. So, I mean, we have customers who have come to us and said, we have 50 petabytes of data that we want to store, but we don't want our data intermingled with anybody else's data for security reasons, ownership reasons, or whatever. We said, fine, we'll build you a complete standalone bespoke instance of Wasabi in your data center. We'll manage it for you, but it'll only have your data in it, and it'll
Awesome.
be on your premise.
Yeah,
So
this is
we,
big.
we we've done
Yeah.
that in a number of cases.
Okay, and it's the same software stack in effect.
It's exactly the same, and we
Yeah.
manage it, and we make sure that it's up and working, and we monitor the performance and things like that with all of our tools. We also, when we move into a new market, for example, when we moved into Australia, we had an anchor tenant already
Yeah.
lined up so that we didn't open the data center on day one and put the for rent sign out, so to speak, and
Yeah.
nobody was there. So when we move into a new market, we like to have a customer there who says, "Will you please bring Wasabi to Italy?"
Yes.
And so, for example, we had a big telco in Italy that said, "If you bring Wasabi to Italy, we'll buy half the capacity on day one." Um, and so we like to do that as opposed to going in
Totally.
and
Yeah.
just saying, if we build it, they will come,
Yes.
because that doesn't always work out very
Doesn't
well.
always work out. We're actually
Yeah.
very similar. We have I think we've did 100 different data centers that we popped last year. We're trying to double, maybe triple that, let's say. And the question is, where do you land? And it's the easiest answer of all. You just listen to your customers. And so if they say, "Hey, we love what you're doing, but you're not in here or X, Y, or Z or this country," it's a much better proposition to follow that. So we're in, I think, 26 countries. We're trying to add a couple more at the moment. How about yourselves? How many countries did you end up
We're
in?
in 15,
Yeah.
15 different places right now. Um, we have 2 or 3 more slated to open next year. It's we get pretty good coverage. We don't have any data centers in South America yet, and we don't have a data center in India. Those are 2 markets where we have a lot of customers, but we'd have a lot more if we had data
Mm,
centers on site, because a lot of companies say, I don't want my data to leave
yeah.
the country that
Sovereignty.
I'm in. So that's an
Yes.
increasingly an issue.
Yeah.
So
We just recently we launched in Brazil. It was tricky, and there
mhm,
was a lot of taxes to get the
yeah,
infrastructure in there. You almost
yeah,
pay double whatever the cost is of
yeah.
your infrastructure to land there. So it's a difficult place to land. We've actually been really successful in Brazil, though, I must say. So it proved to be worthwhile. And India is, for us, we need telco licenses, and carrier licenses are tricky. And so yeah, that's actually the next big country that we're attempting to enter into. But we've run low on the countries that are easy. The rest of them they're kind of like in the very difficult basket from here on in. But we do have a lot of customers that really, really want us to get there. Well, that's an awesome. The company is phenomenal. I think that the deeper you go, I can't believe the 11 nines. I mean, the software. One thing I know about building infrastructure at scale that's automated, it's the software is the key. And so when you link software and hardware together, you get a really great outcome. So I always looked at VC sort of based companies, and everyone that was building a software company, everyone used to love software. Software was so cool, and anyone with hardware was very, very not cool. What's interesting is that world has just dramatically changed, and I think Nvidia has really, really led that charge. So all of a sudden, you've got an incredibly powerful software stack, which is hard to replicate. But let's say that was easier to replicate than the hardware that you've rolled out as well. And now what you've got are 2 elements: a software stack that links to that hardware. So it makes you very hard to catch, because if someone wants to try and build out a Wasabi or do something similar, you've got to first build wicked software, and then you've got to go and get all the capital, go and pay to build it and deploy it everywhere, get the contracts and so forth. So I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anyone else out there doing what you're doing.
It would be very expensive to enter this business today.
Mm.
As you know, anytime you scale something out, you get problems. You say,
Yes.
It worked when I was this big,
Yeah,
but when I get this big, all of a sudden things are
that's right.
falling over. And, so we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on R&D, and
Yes.
if and it takes years too, right? Because you know, on day one, you think everything works, and then, a year later, you're bigger and things start to fall apart, and you realize, oh my God, this database is not going to scale, or, oh my God, the data channel is not going to be big enough to handle these new disk drives that are coming along. I mean, there's always something architecturally that that it comes along that sort of bites you at some point, and then you have to do this mad scramble to redesign completely redesign some part of your system to accommodate the changes that are coming along in the tech world. So yeah, it's and furthermore, then there's the trust issue, which is, if you were to start Wasabi and,
Yeah.
do
Do
you
I?
have brand permission?
Yeah.
Somebody's going to say, well, send me some customer references. Well, we don't have any yet,
Exactly. Yeah.
Wasabi has 100,000 of them, which
Which
one
one
are
do
you
you want
going
to
to,
talk to?
which one are you going to choose?
That's right.
So,
It's actually
you know,
astounding, that number. We thought we were pretty good at 2,900. You've
well,
got
some of ours are very small. I mean, we have our customers range over many orders of magnitude in size, from
that's
somebody who might be
amazing.
paying us, $500 a year, up to people who are paying us, millions of dollars every month.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's actually incredible that you've scaled from so small to so large inside the same product set, and you just keep the pricing pretty much the same in effect to solve for it. It's perfect. If you build the product to differentiate price at the start and you hold it there, actually, it should scale, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a good business, and it took 5 years to kind of get over the hump, so to
Yeah,
speak,
I
where
bet.
we start to get to the scale where things work because our business is a lot like real estate. You put up an apartment building, you hang on day one, there's no tenants, the thing's losing money hand over fist. You put the for rent sign out, tenants move in, and when the building gets to 60 or 70% occupancy, it starts to make money. And we're the same. We build a data center somewhere, we got no tenants, so to speak, and we put the for rent sign out and do some marketing and hire a few salespeople and get some channel partners, and the people start, you know, renting our disk drives, so to speak, sending us their bits.
Could
And
what's the thing that limits you? As in, if you could, is it just capital, or have you got enough capital that it's just you keep a consistent supply and it's taken up appropriately? If you supplied more, do you end up consuming more? Or is it, I guess, what's the or the bottleneck for you?
well, there are the bottleneck is you know, geographic expansion because moving into a new market is very expensive, and
Yes.
the payback on that first installation is long.
Mm,
By the time you're established in a market and you're already at, let's say, 100 petabytes and you're going to 110
yeah, that's
petabytes or
fine.
120, the payback on that for us is very fast, months.
Yeah.
So, because we're just adding a small amount of incremental capacity.
And
But
it's
that
taken up by
first,
your existing customers or whatever it may be,
that's
or
right.
yeah,
And we're
yeah,
also
yeah,
amortizing all the networking gear and all the
yeah,
other stuff because on day one, only half of the money that we spend on a new data center is actually storage. The other half is all the other infrastructure,
yeah, of course, yes,
database servers and
yeah.
network devices and, various security things. And that you can amortize that over a much bigger installation later on.
Well, I think Megaport's connecting to you in most countries. We see a huge push from the US, from Australia, some of the Europe locations. We saw this funny thing where every time we land in a new country, we have this issue where no one knows who we are. So we start again. We turned up in Spain, same thing. They're like, "Who are you? We don't know who you are." We turned up to Brazil. They're like, "Who are you? We don't know who you are." You got to start. In fact, in Italy, it was the same. You got to start, and it takes about a year for people to realize it. I wanted to ask a few questions, background wise. I did some research on you. You're an engineer by trade. I think you was it electrical engineering? Is that your
Yeah, my
background?
undergraduate degree actually is in music composition.
Of
But
course it is.
when you get out of I got out of college in the middle of the Vietnam War. Nobody was thinking about careers. But when you get out of college with a degree in music composition and you see now what the hell am I going to do? you know,
There's only a
I'm not
couple
going
of
to
options.
survive, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went back to grad school in engineering, electrical
No way.
engineering. Yeah,
Okay. And then you ended up. So yeah, you obviously. How on earth do you end up creating companies?
yeah.
That's a big change to there, and you've built lots of them. So that's. I'd love you to just sort of. How on earth did you do that? And then how did you do it 7 times?
hmm
Uh,
Well, I
yeah.
dropped out of grad school to combine my interest in music and engineering, and started a company called ARP, that was a big deal in. It was the first one of the first two synthesizer companies. And if you know any musicians, they'll know ARP.
Yeah.
Um, and so I spent 10 years chasing rock bands for endorsements. And, I don't know if I can share my screen here, but
Yeah, you should be able to, I think.
let me see. I'm not quite sure how to do it. But, I've got pictures of me with Pete Townsend, Jimmy Page, Stevie Wonder,
Right.
on and all these rock stars. And I had this box of photos from when I had long hair and was doing all this. And when my kids were teenagers and thought I was just a stuffy old dad, they discovered this box and they
Yes.
go, geez, my dad was actually cool.
So, so
So,
yeah, so you were literally following these guys around, hanging out with
yeah,
rock
and
stars.
my synthesizer was the voice of R2D2 and in Star
What?
Wars. It was used to communicate with the spaceship in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
No way.
Uh, so I mean, it was a very big deal back in the 70s and 80s.
And so where did
But
that end
anyway,
up?
it was a lot of fun.
Where did it end? Where did that end up? Did that get
We
acquired or
ended
something?
up selling the company to CBS Musical Instruments. CBS was on a they wanted to turn themselves into a music conglomerate. So they bought Steinway, they bought Fender guitars, they bought Rogers drums, they bought my company ARP, which was at the time the leading synthesizer manufacturer in the
Amazing.
world. And they screwed them all up.
Yeah.
And they're now back all under private management. And my company got absorbed by Fender. So in the end,
Isn't
so
that fascinating? So there, yeah.
yeah.
Now you and then you. What did you pivot from? How did you go from that to storage?
Well, when I was running ARP, the key really was artist endorsements. I wanted to sell a lot of synthesizers, and that
Mm,
means selling synthesizers to high school rock bands,
yeah.
not just the Who and Led Zeppelin and that kind of thing, because they only need a few. They
A
don't need a
couple of them.
lot.
Yeah, you got to
So,
scale that thing. Yeah.
but if you want the high school rock bands to buy your synthesizer, the big groups had to come out with hits with using your synthesizer. And then if they had a hit with my synthesizer, they'd all go out and buy mine. If they had a hit with my competitors, they'd go buy that one. So I started getting obsessed about artist endorsements. And the key was to find a group that was on the upswing and get them to sign an endorsement before they got so big and so famous that you couldn't get to
And
them
then use
or
it.
they wanted millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's right. Wait
So,
for them to become famous and then be like, here it is.
right. So I taught myself to program and I created a little app on an Apple II computer that I called TrendSpotter. And I fed in data from record sales, radio airplay data, and things of this sort, which allowed me to do analysis and find these groups that were kind of down in the noise that were trending up. And, I learned to figure out, which markets were the most influential. You wouldn't be surprised. California was kind of the most influential market. And, it was really effective. One day I had a venture capitalist in my office to try to raise money for the synthesizer business. And he wasn't interested in that. He was convinced the Japanese were going to take over that market, which he was right about that. But he wanted to know what I was doing with a computer on my desk because this was, probably 1981,
Yeah.
1982, something like that. And so I showed him how I could whip up these charts and visualize all this data, record sales, airplay. And he said, "I'll give you $1 million to start to seed a company to commercialize that software." And I said, "Nah, but 6 months later, the long story short, I had sold ARP to CBS, and launched a company called Computer Pictures using this guy's $1 million. And it was a big success. We sold the company 2.5 years later to a bigger software company. And then, my partner, Jeff Flowers, and I, who've been together this whole time, we said, let's do another version of that. And we
So
launched
Jeff was with you way back then.
Well, when I was just starting Computer Pictures, I had read an article about Jeff in the Boston Globe because he and another guy had kind of saved one of the big mini computer manufacturers in Boston called Prime. It was a big deal back then. And they had a relational database product that was all kinds of problems, and customers were suing them, and the stock price was tanking. And the engineering department said it was going to take 3 years to rewrite this relational database product. And Jeff went to the CEO and said, I'd like to try rewriting the product myself.
No way.
And so he took 3 other guys, and they rented a little white house out in South Natick. And in 6 months, they completely rewrote this product called Midas.
What year is
And
this? This is in the
this would
80s.
have been 1982, I guess, 1981,
Yeah.
1982. And it saved the company, literally. And the Boston Globe wrote up a full front page article in the business section about how these 4 young programmers had done what the whole engineering department with hundreds of engineers said would have taken 3 years. So it was one of those soul of the new machine kind of
Wizards.
stories.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, that's a great story. I'm reading this, drinking my cup of tea and reading this article. I got to call this guy and have lunch, just say, see what happened. So I called him up and we had lunch. And it turns out that I thought he was going to be like a hero at Prime, and they were going to roll out the red carpet, paying him millions of dollars.
Give him stock and whatever.
He made the engineering department look so bad that they blackballed him, and they would not let him come back into the engineering department. So they had stuck him in marketing. And believe me, he does not want to. You do not want Jeff in the marketing department.
No.
And so he was pissed, and I said, well, I'm doing a startup. Why don't you come join me in this startup? So he went back and quit the next day and came.
So he came to ARP. That was the.
He came to no. This was Computer Pictures after I'd sold ARP, my first software company, and he took one look at the code I had written, and said, "You are banned from writing software." So
you can no longer code. You're out.
he rewrote this product, and he brought the 3 other guys with him, and 2 of them are still with me today.
That's unreal.
And we're all in our 70s, and we're all working at Wasabi.
That's
and
amazing.
So it's been a great team of really brilliant people. And so that's how we got to where we are. So we've been doing databases and complicated stuff for a long time.
It's phenomenal. It's such a good story. It's amazing you've managed to keep that group together. You obviously like solving complex problems because it's certainly, I'm sure you've got enough money to keep yourself satisfied. So it's like it's got to be driven by something else. So it's awesome.
Fun, I mean, I feel like at this point in my career, I actually have done it so many times, so I don't have the anxiety that I had when I was young. And I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I'm kind of like an orchestra conductor. I don't have to write the software. I don't have to write the marketing campaigns. I just provide an environment in which everybody else can flourish.
Yeah. Well, that did strike me about you. You're someone. I mean, you as you said before the session, you're raising more capital. You're talking to different folks. And you're very calm. You're very calm in this environment. Most founders are manic. It's just you've done that plenty of times before, and it's proven. It's just not a worry. Incredible. So the other thing I was going to ask you about is you've got some interesting hobbies, which are sort of behind you. I don't know if the audience is going to be able to see it, but you were into some incredible gems and minerals. So, and I know you've also donated a lot of those, or at least we were having this chat before, and you were saying that you stored a whole bunch of stuff in your house, and your wife is starting to go crazy that you've actually taken the house over with these incredible gemstones. Now, most males, when they do that, the answer is whatever it is that they've been storing in their house just usually has to get thrown away. But in your case, you were storing such interesting items that they've ended up in a museum. So,
Yeah. Well, there's
tell me
still millions of dollars worth of minerals in this room right behind me.
that. I
And
saw them
when
last
I
time.
was eight years old, I think I was in maybe fourth grade, something like that. They were building this big superhighway down through New Rochelle, New York, where I grew up, and they would do blasting every day to build level roadbed. And I used to crawl under the fence on my way home from fourth grade and go through the construction site to pick up leftover blasting wire because I liked building electromagnets and things like that. And one day I looked up on this cliff that they had just blasted and I saw this sparkling stuff. So I kind of climbed up and looked, and I thought I had found diamonds and I was going to be rich. It was actually just little quartz crystals. But a guy who lived a few houses down from me was a retired professor of mineralogy at NYU. And so I told him about it. And he crawled under the fence. He must have been 80 at the time, but he crawled under the fence and brought his rock hammer and he showed me how to cut these quartz crystals out. And that was the beginning of my rock collection. And it has, over the years, kind of taken over my life. And I just here's one that just arrived in the mail this morning. This is fluorite from the Rogerley mine in England, and this is a classic specimen of mineral from a very famous mine, very famous location. Can't quite see the beautiful green color in the camera, but
Yeah, that's the
uh,
inside of the rock, or what?
well,
It's
this
like
would have
a.
been in a cave of sorts,
Hmm.
and these crystals you can see on the back is just rock, right, which they would
Yeah.
have cut out with a diamond saw. But these crystals, it's a calcium fluoride, which is a mineral kind of like salt, and in fact the crystals are cubic, just like salt crystals are. And over time the calcium fluoride that was in the dirt, essentially above these hidden caves, would have dissolved with rainwater, come down into these small caves, and coated the inside of the rocks with these crystals. So these would have taken millions of years to grow to this
Hmm.
size in all likelihood. But anybody who's into collecting minerals, if they saw this specimen, they would say, "Oh, that's Rogerley mine."
All right.
And there are a
Through,
few other
yeah.
mines in the region, and the crystal color would be a little different. The
Yeah.
size of the crystals would be a little different. So you get so that you can identify these things and see them right away. But
The
this,
connoisseur of crystals.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you Google David Friend Yale, which is where I went to college, you'll see the David Friend Mineral Hall, and it's full of gems and minerals that could no longer fit in my house. Some of the specimens down there are 2 or 3 thousand pounds in weight. So
Wow.
there was no way I was ever going to get them into my house in the first place. So they sat in a warehouse until we built this museum.
That's amazing. Is that the Peabody Museum? Is it of Natural
Peabody
History?
Museum
Yeah.
of Natural History at Yale,
Yeah.
which is the oldest natural history museum in the U.S. and has a fabulous collection now. It's and these specimens have gotten very expensive over the years. I think the mineral hall at Yale is insured for $100 million. So they weren't too pleased when they got the bill from Lloyd's to insure it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I'm going to let you have them, but you've got to insure them.
that's right.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it's a marvel what comes out of the ground. And
Mm,
when people come to my house here and they look at some of these things, they can't believe they're natural.
yeah.
That they weren't carved or cut. But I still like going digging around. I'll go into these mines and be up to my knees in mud and water.
Go and find some fascinating.
Yeah, go in with
Yeah.
with some people that know what they're doing, and I'll be going off in February to do a little exploring. So
So this is what keeps your mind focused outside of work, in effect. This is the
yeah,
decompression.
it's a hobby that's kind of taken over. But I still keep active in music. Tomorrow I'm spending the day at Berklee College of Music here in Boston, where I'm on the board of trustees.
I
We
don't
have
know how you do all
we
this.
we have music students living with us here in the house. Students that couldn't afford to go to Berkeley if they didn't have a free place to live, and
That's
you know
amazing.
we have a yeah. So we have these students who've lived with us over the last 30 years. They're all over the world now, and
No way.
when I go to Spain, I can visit them. When I go to England or Turkmenistan or China or you
That's
know
incredible.
whatever, yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've managed to
High
be able to
energy
give back.
kids.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet that. Yeah, and they're probably all going on and doing something phenomenal in their music career if they've gone to Yale
yeah,
and studied music. You don't go there.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Berkeley is a special school because it's not a conservatory. You go there to learn to be a rock and roll star or a jazz musician or a studio musician or
Okay.
learn how to do engineering and production or music
Awesome.
law. So it's all about the music industry. And unlike me, when they get out of college, they actually can find employment.
That's that's incredible. I don't know actually how you do all of that. To be honest, it's amazing. Yeah.
I don't waste time commuting and I don't watch TV. And
Yes.
if you don't do those two things, it's amazing how much time frees up.
Yeah. I bet. Well, still, you are also building a pretty phenomenal company. You're buying kit, rolling it out, leading a team, raising capital, doing all those pieces. I'm sure at some point you want to re-IPO again, and then you got all the gems. So I yeah, still
Yep.
don't know how you do it. So it is pretty incredible. Yeah, it's amazing what you've built. Look,
Thank you. Thanks,
yeah,
Michael. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I hope we can do more business together and, a great admiration for Megaport and what you guys have built.
It's a cool partnership, that's for sure. And there's so many of our customers that love what you're doing, and we sort of cut from the same cloth in the fact that we have taken a full automation path for infrastructure. So again, it's that software and infrastructure and stitch them together, and as long as there's people trying to get between different locations for us, then we will always be the connector. In your case, and as you said, storage never stops growing. It really is. I remember thinking about Snowflake and some of the database companies. I just remember thinking, MongoDBs and these sorts of. Basically, as soon as they had one customer, it was like this instantaneous net retention. Snowflake for years had something like 180% growth of their existing base. No churn, but it just grew 80% per annum off existing customers. No one could even help the growth. Yeah. So it's such a
Yeah.
good business, but it's very
Yeah.
difficult, I think, to solve for. So yeah, congrats on what you've built. We're excited
Thanks.
about continuing to take you to our customers and allowing people to connect to you. And yeah, I don't know how you've done what you've done, but you're an inspiration. Absolutely
No,
amazing. So
thanks.
it's really good to
Thanks.
chat. Yeah,
Network and storage go together. If you have
they sure
storage
do.
and no network, there's no way to get the data to us. So we depend on companies like Megaport.